We must discuss etymology of English words, which is a very interesting topic for discussion. And we must know that the rise of English as a planetary language is an unparalleled success story that begins long ago. We must know also that English vocabulary, which is one of the richest vocabularies in the world. Yes, everybody knows the fact that English vocabulary is very rich. So it is one of the most extensive among the world's languages, contains an immense number of words of foreign origin. And a person who does not know English but knows French, Italian, Latin, Spanish is certain to recognize a great number of familiar-looking words when skipping through an English book. And we usually ask why. How come that English vocabulary, which is one of the most extensive amongst the world's languages, contains so many words of foreign origin? Explanations for this should be sought in the history of the language, which is closely connected with the history of the nation speaking the language. And in order to have a better understanding of the problem, what we are speaking now, it will be necessary to go through a brief survey of some historical facts relating to different epochs. And let us start from the 1st century before Christ. The conquerors of Britain were far more sophisticated Romans. The Roman general Julius Caesar made several hasty invasions. But the true conquest of Britain, however, occurred nearly 100 years later. Disciplined Roman legions spread out over the island, establishing camps that soon grew into towns. So Roman rule for Britain lasted for more than 300 years, so in fact 3 centuries, and it ended only when northern European tribes invaded Italy and increased pressure on Rome itself. The last Roman legions departed from Britain to defend Rome in Anno Domini 407. In the 1st century, among the inhabitants of the continent were Germanic tribes, barbarians, as arrogant Romans called them. Theirs was really a rather primitive stage of development, especially if compared with the high civilization and refinement of Rome. Local inhabitants were primitive cattle breeders and knew almost nothing about land cultivation. The tribal languages contained only Indo-European and Germanic elements. And after a number of wars between Germanic tribes and the Romans, these two opposing peoples came into peaceful contact. Trade was carried on, and the Germanic people gained knowledge of new and useful things. The first among them were new things to eat, because the only products of Germanic tribes was milk and meat, yes, as well. But it was from the Romans that they learned how to make butter and cheese, and as there were naturally no words for these foodstuffs in the tribal languages, they used the Latin words to name them. It is also to the Romans that the Germanic tribes owe the knowledge of some new fruits and vegetables of which they had no idea before, and the Latin names of the fruits and vegetables enter their vocabularies, reflecting this new knowledge. For example, you have these words presented here: cherry, pear, plum, pea, beet, pepper, plant. Some more examples of Latin borrowings of this period are cup, kitchen, meal, port, wine, and so on. And now let us deal with the 5th century Anno Domini. So several of the Germanic tribes, the most numerous among them were the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes, migrated across the sea, now known as the English Channel, to the British Isles. There they were confronted by Celts, the original inhabitants of these isles. The Celts desperately defended their country but in vain, of course, and finally they retreated to the north and southwest. This is modern territory of Scotland, Wales and Cornwall. Through their numerous contacts with the Celts, the conquerors got to know and assimilated a number of Celtic words, such as down, glen, cradle, and so on. Especially numerous among the Celtic borrowings were place names, so names of rivers, hills, etc. The Germanic tribes occupied the land, but the names of many parts and features of their territory remained still Celtic. Even the name of the English capital originates from Celtic, Lyn, Dun, so Lyn as river, plus Dun, fortified hill, the meaning of the whole being fortress on the hill over the river. So some Latin words entered the Anglo-Saxon languages through Celtic, among them such widely used words as street and wall, for example. And now the 7th century, Anno Domini. This century was signified for the Christianization of England. So Latin was the official language of the Christian church, and consequently the spread of Christianity was accompanied by a new period of Latin borrowings. These no longer came from spoken Latin, as they did 8 centuries earlier, but from church. Also, these new Latin borrowings were very different in meaning from the earlier ones. Yes, they mostly indicated persons, objects, and ideas associated with church and especially religious rituals. For example, priest, bishop, monk, nun, candle. So also educational terms were borrowed. For the first schools in England were church schools, yes, and the first teachers, priests and monks. So the very word school is a Latin borrowing, by the way, so scholar of Greek origin, and so are such words as scholar and magister. Now, from the end of the 8th century to the middle of the 11th century, so during this period, England underwent several Scandinavian invasions, which inevitably left a trace on English vocabulary. So here are some examples of early Scandinavian borrowings: call, take, cast, die, law, husband, window, lose, low, weak. So some of the words of this group are easily recognizable as Scandinavian borrowings by the initial sk combination, yes, presented here. For example, sky, skin, ski, skirt. So all these words are Scandinavian borrowings. So some English words changed their meanings under the influence of Scandinavian words of the same root. So Old English bread meant peace and acquired its modern meaning by association with the Scandinavian broad. And the Old English dream meant joy and assimilated the meaning of the Scandinavian drummer.